We've got a great episode of Major Pain for you today with Jen, the host of the My Spoonie Sisters podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I have some news to share with you, and I also wanted to tell you a little bit more about Jen's project because it is so cool. If you're listening to this or watching us on YouTube, obviously you have some interest in chronic illness podcasts. And My Spoonie Sisters is an incredible show with an incredible community. And something we didn't talk about in the episode with Jen today is that Jen also has an amazing Etsy store. She did not ask me to do this, but I looked at it and I have to share this with you because the products are so cool. So for those not watching the podcast, if you're just listening, I brought up some of the images from Jen's store, the My Spoonie Sisters Etsy shop. And there are these amazing stickers that say things like mental health matters, survive it, thrive it, smash it, slay it, an adorable cactus, and it says my immune system sucks. There's also a collection of amazing t-shirts. And I was just so impressed by all this. And these stickers are just so adorable. So I really wanted to share this with you before we jump into talking with Jen today. And if you like hearing from Jen, you've got to check out her podcast, My Spoonie Sisters. There's some really great content on there and also some crossover guests. She recently had an episode with Sheryl Crow, who appeared on this show a while back. I've been checking out My Spoonie Sisters, and it's a great show. And Jen's personal story is amazing. It's a great episode we have for you today on Major Pain. I also wanted to share some news with you. We've had several people sign up on Rare Patient Voice, which I appreciate so much. This is such a cool program where you can sign up to participate in research studies and surveys and get paid for your time. If you sign up using our link, rarepatientvoice.com/majorpainpodcast, you'll be supporting this show while you sign up. We've also had several new 5-star ratings on Spotify, which I so appreciate. I also announced recently that I am opening up a online chat space for listeners of Major Pain to talk to each other, talk about the episode, talk about your major pain, talk about really anything at all that you'd like. This lives over on our Patreon, patreon.com/majorpainpodcast, and it's available to anyone who signs up as a free member on Patreon. Of course, you do have the option to sign up as a paid member with monthly financial contributions to support this podcast, which is super appreciated, and it's a massive part of keeping this show going. Extra special thank you to our Patreon producers, Steve Kavanaugh, Chris Fowler, Trish O'Brien, and Hipster Leia. Your support is legendary. There has been some really great chat going on in our little chat room, which I'm so excited to see. Going through chronic illness alone is awful, and none of us need to do it. We're here for each other. If there's something about your chronic illness that you need to vent, we have a little group started of people who want to hear from you. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/majorpainpodcast. I am in one of the busiest seasons of life that I have ever been a part of. Andy and I are getting married in like 3 weeks at this point. The wedding is really coming up. Wedding planning is going. It's happening. I've started 2 new jobs, and I just got back from my 40th birthday trip to Vegas, which was amazing. I met up with some friends in Vegas, and we just had an absolutely incredible time. It was sort of a birthday trip and a bachelor party. So, little combo trip. We had an absolute blast. Andy and I will definitely be talking about it on the bonus podcast when we have the time to sit down. And of course, all the bonus episodes of Major Pain are available on Patreon to all of our paid subscribers. I do want to let you all know that it's looking like I will not be able to get a podcast out next week. It's actually for a very exciting reason on top of everything that's happening. The guitar pedal company that I work with, Cosmodio Instruments, is going to the Brooklyn Pedal and Synth Expo. So I'll be in Brooklyn. I'm so excited. We're going to be presenting our products there. We're working on a brand new product that we'll be releasing in November. So we'll have some guitar pedals for people to play with at the Pedal and Synth Expo. This is a free event. If you're interested in meeting me in person, I'll be at the Brooklyn Pedal and Synth Expo. You can register for free at delicious-audio.com. It's at the 100 Sutton event space in Greenpoint. So I'm heading to New York this weekend. And then for a few days, I'm heading to the Cosmodio Instruments headquarters in Bedford, Massachusetts. I am the community manager for Cosmodio Instruments. I am the in-house content creator. So I'm going to the headquarters to make a bunch of content. And there's just not going to be a way for me to get a podcast out in the midst of all of this travel. So once again, I apologize. Next week, there will be no show. But I will be doing my best to get shows out for the rest of October leading up into my wedding. And then I'm going on my honeymoon, and I've promised Andy that I will not be releasing podcasts for all of November as we're on our honeymoon. So I want to start getting the word out now to not expect any new content from Major Pain through the entire month of November. I've never done this before. I've never taken time off from the podcast. creating this show is a part of my life. It's a part of my weekly ritual. It's something that really helps me and something that I love so much, just connecting with the chronic illness community, advocating on the behalf of the chronic illness and disability community. It's not something that I ever want to take a break from, but there are certain occasions in life where a break must be taken, and this is one of them. So for the first time ever, I am purposefully taking a month off from the show. Up until then, we have some amazing episodes of the podcast to share. I'm still so excited about the format change recently and sharing full video episodes of the podcast on YouTube. It's been so exciting for me to open up a new way for people to interact and engage and watch the show. It's something that I feel has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to keep doing it. Okay, let's get into our amazing episode with Jenny Weaver from the My Spoonie Sisters podcast. The last thing I'll say before we do so is that we are not medical professionals. Please do not take any medical action based off what you hear on this podcast without first consulting your doctor.
How lucky it is just to get through a day without pain.
If you look at me, it doesn't appear that I have a disability.
A test that comes back abnormal, it's like, yes, we're onto something here.
Welcome to Major Pain. I'm your host, Jesse Mercury, and this week I am joined by my guest, Jen. Jen, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so excited to talk to you today. A fellow podcaster. This is so fun. I know that you usually do the interviewing, so I'm excited to get to interview you, give you the other side of this experience.
Absolutely. It's always nerve-wracking when you're on the other side, but, I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, before we get into your story today, let's get to know you a little bit. So, Jen, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jenny Weaver, and I am 44, and I live over outside of Vancouver, Washington, near Portland, if you're familiar with the area. But, I'm a mom. I've got 3 kids, and I have a 3-year-old grandson that I absolutely love. He's the joy of my life. And I love living over here in the Pacific Northwest. We've got some beautiful things to see, amazing hiking and camping. That's what our family is all about. In fact, I'm about to head over to a place called Stehekin this weekend. I'm so excited. In my spare time, I love to paint, and I make jewelry. I have a little Etsy shop where I make jewelry and sell stickers and all kinds of fun spoony stuff. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Very cool. And of course, we got to hear about your podcast before we get into your story today. So tell us about Spoonie Sisters.
Okay, yeah. So I run the podcast and community called My Spoonie Sisters. And that started a couple years ago when a friend of mine that had a podcast called My Immune System Hates Me, she decided, I know, right? It was a great name. She decided to get back to her normal life as a professional dancer. And I was sad to see her go, but I felt like we needed to keep that community going and the fun of all the adventures we did together going. And so that's where this happened. And I was like, you know what? I do a lot of stuff with what we call our sisters in our community. So I decided to call it My Spoonie Sisters. But we do include our Spoonie brothers quite often as well. And so, yeah, I run the podcast to people living with all kinds of chronic illness, mental illness, all the fun stuff. And we share what it's like to live in their shoes. So that's a little bit about that.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm really excited to get to know you today and to hear your story and hear what inspires you to want to be a chronic illness advocate. So let's get into it. Jen, what is your major pain?
Oh gosh, my major pain is, well, I can start with my diagnoses. I have rheumatoid arthritis and medically induced pustular psoriasis, to name a few.
Wow, medically induced pustular psoriasis. That is a complete mystery to me. I have no idea what that is.
It's as nasty as it sounds.
What is it?
All right. Well, I should probably start with the rheumatoid arthritis because that has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2012. And, they start us out on the disease modifiers all the time because that's typically, what they start out with to see if we can control the disease with that. But that just wasn't enough for me. And so we tried several different biologics, but one of them actually has a 1% chance, it's ultra rare, that you're going to have an allergic reaction resulting in pustular psoriasis.
Oh my God. Wow.
So that's how that happened.
Wow. And, whenever we hear about these things as patients. It's like the doctors tell you there's a 1% chance. You don't need to worry about it. What does it feel like to be the 1%?
It feels like my body hates me. There's something so wrong with me because I have all the reactions. If it's in the tiny print and it says there's going to be a 1% chance, it somehow ends up being me.
Yeah, totally. And doctors kind of assume that it won't be you because it likely won't. But then if it is, you're the only person that lives in your body. And if you are that 1% and you are living with this thing, you have 100% of it, you know? It's a weird calculation, but then I feel like that's something that, you know, doctors, not only do they kind of downplay the possibilities when something is rare, they also sort of downplay what it means to be the person who experiences that. Have you felt minimalized in that way?
I think a little bit. You know, before all this happened, I was a seemingly normal, healthy person. And, you know, they put me on a pill for whatever it was, you know, antibiotic for something. I never had any reactions. And then all of a sudden, this autoimmune life happens and they're like, oh, you're going to be fine. Just, you know, just take this. It's going to help you feel better. No. No. I don't know if it's a product of being like an 80s kid, but I think we delusionally lived in this life where you go to the doctor, they prescribe something for you to take, and you're cured. You're going to be all better. And I guess I looked at rheumatoid arthritis as that, and it doesn't work that way. And now I have skin problems.
Yeah. Rheumatoid arthritis is a complicated disease to treat. I think a lot of our audience will be familiar with rheumatoid arthritis, but for anyone who isn't, can you give us a quick definition?
Ooh, I can give you my version. So my version of rheumatoid arthritis is so much more than just your joints. It affects your ligaments. It affects your organs. Anywhere that can be inflamed, you're going to get inflamed. That's my definition.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk through your journey. Did you say 2012 was when you were diagnosed? Okay.
Yes.
And you're 44 now, and it's 2024. So math. It's been about like 12-ish years that you've been living with this disease.
Yeah.
And we're close in age. By the time this episode comes out, I believe it will be just after my 40th birthday, which I'm excited.
Oh,
going to Vegas.
Congratulations. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Okay, so about 12 years ago, you get diagnosed. But how long before that had you started to notice that something in your body was changing and that you were experiencing this pain?
You know, I think it was for a few years that I had things going on. And in the beginning, I don't really think I realized what was going on. It was just, you know, here and there, one day I'd wake up and I'd be limping. My knee was hurting. And at the time, I actually wanted to join the roller derby team in the town I lived in. And I was so excited. I was a very active person and I loved mountain bike riding and rollerblading and all the things. And then it just kind of kept happening. And so I went to see my family doctor and he had an MRI done of my knee and everything came back totally fine. And a year later, it happened again, but it didn't go away. So here we are, 2011. I've got 3 kids in middle school, all the sports to go to, and I'm limited, you know, adventures they want to go to. We used to love to go to Seattle on family trips and go walk the zoo. Next thing I know, kids are pushing me around in a wheelchair at the zoo because I'm having a hard time getting around. Finally, I went to see my family doctor again, and he did some testing, and he's like, I think you might have a strep infection in your knee joint. Okay. All right.
Wow. That's unexpected.
I didn't know that was a thing. And I was like, I don't think I've had strep throat since 2000, the year 2000. And he was like, that's okay. It can hide in your body and present itself when it wants to.
Wow.
And so that's what he believed. And he put me on about 3 months worth of antibiotics. No change, none whatsoever. So that's when he decided the ANA panel testing, and some things came back with that. And he's like, I think it's time for you to go to a rheumatologist at this point. There's something more going on here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the ANA, do you remember, I mean, this is a long time ago. Do you remember what he saw on that ANA testing?
I'm assuming high inflammation markers. I don't really recall.
Yeah. I've had so many of those tests done and they've always come back normal for me because I have, a different disease, which took forever to actually figure out. But when I hear ANA test and I hear someone say that something came back positive, I'm always just thinking back to all those days where like, I wish that something had come back positive on any test, including that one. Was there a feeling for you of relief at having something come back positive because you'd been living with this sort of mystery? And on top of that, the doctor had been telling you you had something that didn't quite make sense?
Yeah. I definitely, it was just confirmation that I wasn't crazy. Because I think at one point my husband, he was trying to be nice about it, but he said, honey, at what point are you going to be satisfied with their answers? And do you ever worry that it's in your head, or do you worry that they think it's in your head? And that was a huge worry. And it wasn't him trying to be mean. It was also him trying to protect me and say, like, I don't want you hurt because you're going and getting these non-existent answers. So to find out that there actually was something wrong that they needed to figure out and fix definitely made me feel a lot better that I was not crazy.
Yeah, obviously I can absolutely relate to that. And I've had conversations like that with family early on in my journey. The first time a doctor told me it was all in my head, and I was like early 20s, I think, when that happened. And the anger and shock that I felt that the doctor had said that, I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's no way that this is all in my head. And then, having the conversation with loved ones to be like, okay, well, do we think that this is real? Do we think that the doctor is right? And the loved ones who want to have an answer for you, and it doesn't matter what the answer is to them. They just want to know so they can try to help, But for you and for me, when that answer is, it's not real, it shakes the foundation of reality,
Absolutely.
And then to have a loved one be willing to get on board with that also shakes the foundation of reality. And it's a very desperate, lonely feeling to be put in that position. Definitely.
I could not agree with you more.
Yeah. So then you have this potential answer. You go to the rheumatologist. What happens next? I just have to say, anyone listening to the audio version, please go watch the video version for that reaction, because that was the best eye roll I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my gosh. I hear from my family, I have that eye roll down really well.
Yeah.
That first rheumatologist was in Spokane, Washington. And I hated him. Absolutely hated him. He was recommended to me because I actually knew somebody diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And she said, hands down, don't go to the one in Tri-Cities, go to Spokane. So I made the trek to Spokane, and I regret that I ever did.
Wow.
So anyone in Washington State, no, you can do better. This man, first of all, somehow there were some mishaps. My family doctors did not get all of the materials sent over, all the testing, everything that the person wanted in Spokane. And so he almost sent me out the door that very moment that I walked in.
Oh my God.
He was like, I don't have everything that I asked for. I requested it multiple times. And he's like, I don't know if I can help you today.
Wow.
I burst into tears.
And that's, from where you're at, what is that, 3-4 hour drive?
Spokane was about 2 hours because I lived in Tri-Cities at the time, so it wasn't too bad. And I had family in Spokane, luckily, but still 2 hours, to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Going to a doctor 20 minutes away and showing up and having them say, oh, I can't help you because I don't have your information is devastating enough, and having to go hours out of your way to do it when you're in pain, when you know that there's something on this test result. And then this is the guy who's supposed to be able to help you and provide answers. You're living in this state of limbo. That must have been so awful.
It was terrible. And I, like I said, I just burst into tears, and I just sat there going, are you freaking kidding me? The last several months, I've been in so much pain. It's starting to spread to my other joints. Something's wrong. And he's going to send me out the door.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was the tears, but he was like, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. And I'll run some blood work myself. Because that was mostly what he was mad that he didn't have, was the results of like the ANA and all that.
Yeah.
And so the first thing he led into was, okay, we're going to start you on prednisone. It looks like you've had some major weight loss. And yeah, I did. A lot of us have weight loss when we're in pain and something's going on and we're tired all the time and we're not eating like we should. And
Mm.
so I had lost about 30 pounds. I think I was down to 98 pounds. And so he was like, I'm going to put you on prednisone. I want to get some weight on you. What? You're going to put me on prednisone and talk about the weight factor, not about the fact that you're hoping that'll help my pain in my joints?
Wow.
Okay. So, like I said, every time he spoke, I just hated him more. And so when I left his office, I was frustrated, defeated, hated him, and I had three pamphlets in my hand uh, of what illnesses he thought I might have.
What were
And
those three?
rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and honestly, I don't remember what the third one was. But I remember going home and reading the pamphlets and looking back on it now, I wish that I would have walked away right there because my whole year following that was dealing with someone like that. Not worth it.
You
I didn't
saw
even
that
get
same doctor for a year.
yep, I put up with him for a year.
Wow.
Yeah. When I went back the next time, he finally started to put me on some medications. He explained that a lot of these illnesses that are the potential of what's wrong all use the same kind of drugs, the disease modifiers. And so he's like, all right, let's start there. And the first one he put me on, I had an allergic reaction to. And so this allergic reaction, I was not even home. I was visiting my parents who live out in the Pasayten wilderness. And they don't even have a doctor available. And I had a seizure
Oh
in the
my
middle of their
God.
kitchen and fell and hit my head.
Oof.
And so we called the rheumatologist and we said, do we need to be concerned? Do I need to stop the medication? Oh no, we don't think you want to stop the medication. Go ahead and keep taking it.
Oh my God.
My husband got out the computer and he's like, wait a minute. It looks like some people have seizures on this medication. You can't be taking this. I don't care
Yeah.
what he says. And I agreed. So we end up getting the email from the doctor explaining his reasons of continuing the medication, and he listed his reason as being, well, I see you have epilepsy, so you already have seizures.
What?
Exactly. And I said, huh, when was I diagnosed with this epilepsy? I was never diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
If he would have looked at my charts, I was given medications that are given to some people with epilepsy to treat migraines
When you were younger,
in my 20s.
in your 20s. Okay. Wow. That's kind of terrifying to have this
Mhm.
doctor who's giving you this medication that is causing seizures, and he's like, it's
Mhm.
fine. You already had
Yeah.
seizures when you don't. I mean, I can't even imagine how I would feel. I would definitely want to cut the cord with that doctor right away.
And can you believe I kept going?
Wow.
I don't know what was wrong with me. I'm a glutton for punishment. I went to this man for a whole year. I don't know.
Wow.
I look back now and I tell people it's okay. You can fire your doctor.
Yeah. Well,
You,
I mean, it makes sense to me that you'd stick with this guy because we are societally trained to believe doctors. And there's like this social stigma that tells you that you're wrong and doctors are right. But then, your husband looking up online that you shouldn't take that drug, that's a better answer than what the doctor was giving you who went to medical school, because he sounds just kind of checked out. Like he sounds like he's not really giving you the attention that you deserve. And probably to his other patients as well, not giving them the care that they deserve as well, which is just, it's terrifying. But doctors are human. And I'm already hearing in your story all these moments where you have this gut feeling that something is wrong and that the answers you're being given are wrong. But because we're societally trained to believe that, you're ignoring your own gut instinct. And I'm assuming, I'm just, guessing that in this story, there comes a point where you're like, you know what? I got to trust my gut. And you start to listen to yourself and believe yourself. I'm guessing that's where we're heading, but who knows?
no, that is exactly it. And
Yeah.
I cannot believe, and I'm embarrassed to say that it took me a whole year to finally stand up for myself, but I finally did. And I found the most amazing care team.
Hmm.
And it was right in my hometown.
Wow. I'm so glad to hear that.
The very first appointment with the new rheumatologist, he diagnosed me that day.
You went a year with this other doctor without the diagnosis. He still hadn't narrowed it down from those 3 pamphlets he gave you. He still hadn't narrowed it down to which disease this was.
That's correct.
Wow. That's so upsetting.
Hmm. Yeah. So I have the seronegative is how most people say it, or say however that word is pronounced. You know what I'm talking about, the RF factor test.
Yeah, the SCRO negative.
Yes, that weird word. And so I am not the positive, and so that I guess I'm the anomaly, and that's why he didn't really want to take it seriously. And so when I saw the new rheumatologist, he said, "I'm looking at everything here, and just because you didn't have a positive test does not mean that this is not what you have.
Yeah.
You all your signs, you're a classic case. Let's try a better treatment plan."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like we're living through this transition period with the sort of old school medicine into the sort of new school.
Mm-hmm.
Old school being whatever is on the page from the test results is the only thing that's real. And the new school recognizes that it is nowhere near that simple. And you have to work with the person and try to understand what's happening in their body. The lab results can help guide you in the right direction, but the clinical diagnosis is often, this is my story as well, is that the clinical diagnosis leads to trying medication, which leads to either getting better or getting worse. And if you get better, then it's like, okay, we got the right diagnosis. So what was the medication difference when he diagnoses you? Do you remember what he puts you on next?
So I was switched to methotrexate when I was still going to the other doctor, but they did switch me to doing injections because they felt that was going to be better on my stomach. But what this new rheumatologist added in was Orencia. And so I started getting the monthly infusions. And it really wasn't totally working just yet. And so I don't think I was on it maybe more than 6 months when they decided to try a new one. And that's when they switched me to Actemra, which was fantastic. I was pretty much in remission, but the problem was my white blood count continued to drop every time I would go to visit her. And because I saw the PA as well, and she was amazing. And so she finally explained to me, "I don't think this is a good idea to keep you on the Actemra because I'm worried about your white blood count just dropping too much. So let's try something else." And that's when we went to the Remicade, and that was the one that caused the allergic reaction resulting in pustular psoriasis.
Wow. And we now know this was not your first allergic reaction. So pustular psoriasis, it sounds to me like, I don't know what this is, but it sounds like you take this medication and your skin erupts in like boils or something. What does that look like?
Yeah, pretty much. So I was on Remicade for probably 6 months before it started happening. And the Remicade was working great. I felt really, really good, just like I did on Actemra. And so that was what was so hard about this. But what I started to notice was these tiny little sores starting up on like my ankle area. And they resulted in going up my legs. So I had a whole chunk of area that like these red sores. And I wasn't sure what was going on, so I went to get it checked out at urgent care. Urgent care thought it was some kind of skin infection. They thought I got it from the pool at my gym. Okay, whatever. But when I went to see my rheumatologist for my next infusion, I said, "Hey, this is what, the urgent care doctor said, this is what they gave me. Am I still okay to do my infusion this month?" And when she took a look, she was horrified for one. But she left the room, grabbed the 3 other rheumatologists in that office, and came back in to take a look at me. And they're all kind of huddled and whispering and hugging each other. And they were explaining to me that, no, this is actually not a skin infection. This is a rare, rare occurrence. And this is what it is.
Wow.
And it continued to get worse.
Wow. How far did it spread?
Pretty much my whole body, not my face, but inside my ears, all over my scalp, up and down my arms and my legs.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And this was the monthly infusion medication that caused this?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in your whole body and you can't get it out. Yeah. It's already in. And timeline-wise, you said you were going back in for your next infusion and you had
Right.
already started to break out. I'm assuming they don't give you the next infusion.
No, no.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's a rare allergic reaction to TNF inhibitors. So that wiped out an entire classification of medication that I no longer can have, which
Yeah.
worked well for me. So I can't have Humira or any of that stuff.
Oh, frustrating.
And from that appointment, it continued to spread. They sent me to a dermatologist to see if they could help. To be honest, though, they even told me, they said, the dermatologists here suck.
Mm.
You may end up needing to go to Seattle or Portland or something. And sure enough, everything that that doctor recommended I try made my skin feel like it was on fire. It was
Wow.
horrible.
What sort of stuff did he have you try?
I don't remember the names of them, but one was a spray, one was an ointment, and one was a cream.
Okay.
And every time I would apply these to my skin, it just felt like my skin was melting.
Oh my God. It seems like an allergic reaction like that, you almost have to just wait it out. I mean, you've infused this stuff into your body,
Mm.
and it seems like the only way to get this reaction to stop happening is to just wait. Or, I mean, is it like a histamine response? Can you take Benadryl or something like that?
I don't think so. I took Benadryl for occasional, like seasonal allergy issues, and that didn't help my skin at all.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was feeling defeated. I'm applying aloe vera to myself daily. Uh, I mean, like lathering it on, putting socks on in hopes that that'll kind of help keep it on the bottoms of my feet because it was really attacking the bottoms of my feet at that point. So at this point, they didn't realize that it was an entire classification. So I should probably correct myself on that.
Hmm.
At this point, they thought it was just that particular medication.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
when they started me on the next infusion called Simponi, it was in the same classification.
Oh, no.
And the reaction continued and continued to get worse. So that is when they actually said, this is the whole classification issue. You can't have it anymore.
Wow.
So at that point, that's when she's like, okay, we've got to attack it with something else. So now we're treating rheumatoid and psoriasis together. We need to find something other than TNF inhibitors that can treat both of these. And so I don't remember the name of the one, but they had me do like a weekly injection in my leg to see if that would help. That medication didn't work. And so about 6 weeks later, so at this point it's 2017, and I think this whole thing started in 2016. So it's 2017. That's when we start Otezla, and that's a daily pill form of a medication to treat both of those. And that is when my skin finally started to heal.
How long was your skin erupting?
I'd say almost a year.
Wow. That sounds so horrible. What was that year like for you? To have something so visible and so painful going on.
I would say it was probably one of my worst years. I thought rheumatoid arthritis was difficult. I thought that the pain in my joints was difficult. But when it's your skin, it's next level.
Yeah.
My doctor actually described it as a burn from the inside out.
Oh my God.
Because that's what my skin looked like. It was horrible. So if any of you are into gross, nasty things, you can actually look up pictures of pustular psoriasis. I don't recommend it. It's gross. But it's oozing and it's cracking and it's thick and it's bleeding. It's like it has this whole life cycle, right? When the medication finally started working, my skin started to not go into overdrive anymore. So the thickening was starting to go away. And now it's just kind of shedding little light pieces of skin.
Hmm.
At that point, I was like, great. Okay. That means I'm on a healing journey. I'll take it. So I have skin falling off me everywhere I go in my house. It's all over my clothes. But at this point, I'll take it.
What is the relationship between pustular psoriasis and just psoriasis that you'd see in like psoriatic arthritis? We just had an episode, a couple episodes back, about psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis. And I know that it's in a similar class of illness as rheumatoid arthritis. But yours, I mean, obviously, this is triggered by a medication. But it's curious to me that the name of this reaction is also a form of psoriasis.
Right. So there are many forms of psoriasis that people can have.
Yeah.
And each one presents itself differently. And so this one, people can actually get it without an allergic reaction.
Hmm.
And so there are people out there that do have it. I feel so sorry for them because I can only imagine, especially if they're going through everything I went through, just trying to find something to treat it. But, in the regular classification of what people are most familiar with, it looks kind of like a thickening of the skin
Hmm.
and kind of shedding and so, if people get it on their scalp, a lot of times people think they have dandruff because you see pieces of skin in their hair. Or you'll see, thick patches on the elbows of skin. But in pustular psoriasis, it looks more like you've got multiple bug bites with pus inside of them.
Hmm.
And then as they begin to heal, they burst basically, and then the skin begins to thicken and look more like regular psoriasis as the healing process continues.
Okay. Um, and was there any part of your body that was spared? I guess I'm asking about, did this affect your face?
Not at all. That is the
Wow.
one area I completely lucked out in. And I've actually met a couple of people that they have had it on their face.
Yeah.
And periodically, when they're stressed, that's where they get it.
Wow. So you go through this year of having this disease. How does that change your outlook on your body and beauty standards to have something happen to you that you can't control, that is not your fault? It's really no one's fault. I mean, it sounds like you have a great care team at this point. And unfortunately, this is just one of those 1% things. Just 1% of the time, this could happen. It did happen. But then going forward from that experience, how does that change the way you feel?
It's a really good question. Especially, I don't know. Maybe it's worse for a woman than a man. I don't know. But we have this persona that we feel like we have to show the world. And I can only cover up so much. It made me self-conscious. And I do have some scarring on my legs and a couple of places on my arms from where it got really bad. Actually, I do have some scarring on my feet too, but he's going to really see my heels and the bottom of my feet. So that's probably the worst of it is the scarring. And so for a long time, I didn't want to wear shorts because I didn't want people looking at my legs.
Hmm. Being a few years away from that, how do you feel about that now?
What a relief. I'm just glad I made it through. I'm glad that I had such amazing supportive people in my life, but it was really hard seeing all the pity looks. But at the same time, I almost wanted to shake people and be like, okay, so you're looking at me with such pity for what's going on with my skin. But when it comes to my RA, you don't get it. You don't get
Hmm.
it at all.
Yeah. And what was the situation at that point with your RA? Once you kind of balance out your medication regimen, your skin starts to calm down. Where did that leave you with the rheumatoid arthritis?
As my skin was beginning to heal, my joints were getting under control as well because the medication was working really well for both conditions. But, leading up to that, I'd been flaring so bad and I was hurting so bad, but I was trying to stay active because, we always talk about how important movement is. We need to lubricate those joints. It's super important. And so it was just kind of a weird area to be in my life where I'm looking at people going, I wish you understood my RA, like you're understanding my skin. But it just goes to show that people have a hard time understanding something they cannot see.
Yeah, totally. And now you've been living with it. Has it been stable for these last 5 or 6 years since this happened?
So last year, I started getting some pretty bad breakouts on my hands again.
Oh no.
And I was so terrified. I was like, not again. I can't do this. But we had a lot of stress going on in our lives. My father-in-law passed away. We were helping my mother-in-law sell her home so she could move in with us. It just was a lot. And I'm watching my hands get really bad. And finally I talked to my rheumatologist. And and that's when we decided to attack it differently. And I guess I'm leaving out something. I had a whole new illness attack me last year.
Hmm.
I started losing my hair.
Wow.
And so I had to go find a new dermatologist last year, and I was diagnosed with alopecia areata. Those lucky people that, lose circular patches of hair. And he was actually the one that mentioned to me have you considered a JAK inhibitor? I've heard great things about it for psoriasis, but it also treats alopecia areata. And so that is who recommended I talk to my rheumatologist. And as soon as I talked to her about it, she said, yeah, that's actually a great idea. Great thinking. Because it looks like this medication isn't working well for you anymore. So we're going to drop it and we're going to try Rinvoq. And my skin has probably been the best it's ever been.
Wow. It's so amazing how when you find the right medication, it can affect your body in so many more ways than you would expect. Like I've been on mast cell stabilizing medication for a couple years now, and people are telling me that I look healthy, which is like, for me, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe it. It's impacting me inside and out and what I'm capable of doing. I just got back from a trip to go camping at the gorge to see Dave Matthews.
Ooh.
And 3 years ago, I was in a wheelchair. And whenever friends of mine were going to see Dave at the gorge, it's like, that's not a possibility for me. I can't navigate that. I don't have the energy to sit up long enough to see a concert at all, let alone go camping somewhere to see Dave Matthews,
And get down the gorge as well?
Oh, yeah. If no one's ever been to the gorge, it's a hike to get from the camping area to the actual venue. I mean, my legs were sore for days. I'm still getting muscle tone back in my legs from the years I spent in a wheelchair. But yeah, so it's just, all these ways that my body has been impacted. It's not just that you treat the disease, it's that you put your body back into alignment. There's something that has gone haywire in your body. And I'm thinking back to an episode we did with Douglas, who is a Chinese medicine practitioner. And he talked about the concept of homeostasis, like putting your body into homeostasis. I think that's the word that he used. That way of, putting your body into alignment. So it's not just that the disease process is stopped. It's that all the other ways in which that disease process was affecting the way that the rest of your body works is now able to sort of flow more freely. It's like, the disease is a giant boulder inside of a stream, and it just completely stops the flow of water. And as you pull the boulder out, there's like this, immediate change. But then over time, as all this water is rushing through, it will continue to change what that riverbed looks like. And that's your body. And over time, it just continues to change and work more and more the way that it should. And I've been feeling that in my body. It sounds like that's something that you've experienced as well, that not only do you have these big shifts in medication that change things immediately, but the further away you get from that, you have this time where your body is sort of working more the way that you want it to overall. And that impacts you from head to toe.
Definitely. And I think, the more that I've gotten to feeling more like me again, the better that I've been able to support people because I have the energy to do it. And so a lot of why I do what I do in the community is because I never want people to feel the way that I felt at the beginning of my journey. Yeah. It's a lonely place to be. It's lonely when you feel like your friends and family around you don't understand it and are not there for you the way that you desperately need. And so I strive to share with people, you can get from point A to point B. It might take a while, but it's going to be so much different. And so you're not always going to feel absolutely terrible, and you could have times where you do. But I guess I'm in that place now where I'm pretty consistent with how my body's going. And so I want to support people the way that I know they need.
I know that feeling very well. When did you start your podcast?
Oh, gosh. I think it was the end of 2021. Is it bad that I don't remember? It seems like I've been doing it forever, but I know I haven't.
And what was the build-up to that like? I know for me, I wanted to start this show for years before I did. And there was a big part of me that resisted doing it. But then I just couldn't hold it back anymore. I just had to try. And it's been incredible ever since. But what was that like for you?
It was kind of scary in the beginning, but I had a lot of fun being on the podcast with my friend Chelsea and doing all the fun shenanigans that we did. That whole year, we would do these things we called the spoon toss reel. And so we would ask a bunch of people to join in with us, and we would pretend to be tossing a spoon to them. And then we kind of compile everybody together. And I haven't done that one in a while. We've been doing walking reels instead, but I need to do a spoon toss. So if anyone wants to join, I challenge you. But that was kind of the lead up. And I guess, for anyone that is new into getting into advocacy or podcasting type things or any of that kind of stuff, the one thing I always tell people is it's so scary in the beginning, but the more you try and the more you practice and the more you talk to people, the easier it gets. It's not always going to be perfect. If you're a shy person, you're still going to be shy, but you get a little better at doing it.
Yeah, that's super true. And I think something that holds me back a lot is this idea that I need to do everything perfect. It's like if I'm going to put out the show, it has to be just right. And that can be the enemy of doing it at all. And eventually I had to give myself permission to have growing pains. I just need to figure out a way to get it started. And then I can tweak as we go along. And each individual episode doesn't have to be the way that I do the show forever. It can grow.
Absolutely. And I think, as we grow, we're going to change. We're going to learn new skills. We're going to find new ways that we want to go about what we do, whether it be change the kind of questions we ask. I mean, it can be anything, but I think growing and learning is a good thing.
Yeah. So in the years that you've been doing the podcast, what has it been like? What is the sort of reaction you've gotten from people?
Oh, wow. I've gotten some incredible friendships out of it and some incredible messages from people. People love to make my eyes sweat. They'll hear people that have impacted them, have encouraged them, with whatever condition it is they have. And the excitement that people have to not feel alone is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced the same. It's
Yeah.
great to hear back from people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, like providing a platform for other people to express what they've experienced is sort of the week to week power of doing the show for me. But I do hear back from people who listen to the show, and every once in a while someone will say something to me that just like really hits me hard. Just like this week, someone left a comment on TikTok thanking me for my advocacy and saying that, they've been trying antihistamines for mast cell activation, even though they don't really have a doctor on board with that, but that their quality of life has changed. And I just went through so many years not knowing what was wrong and having nothing work and having no resources. So the idea that this resource could actually function and work for someone to make a change in their day-to-day life is overwhelmingly joyful for me. It's just so incredibly rewarding. You and I both lived through this feeling of it's never going to get better. I don't know what's wrong. And now we both have answers and we both have medications and it's gotten better. And it's so hard to believe, it's so hard to believe that that's even possible. And I just live in this state of gratitude now. How has it impacted your outlook on the world? Like, has it changed your sense of empathy and gratitude to have experienced this really tumultuous health challenge?
100%. And I often tell people that I wouldn't change a thing. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it does. Because who wants to live with any of this?
Yeah.
But this is why I say that. Because it's made me who I am today. And I think it's made me a better human and more compassionate. Because now I look at people with a lot of patience. It could be something like driving down the road today and, maybe somebody cut me off or whatever. And instead of freaking out in that moment, I'm actually thinking, oh gosh, I wonder what they're going through. I mean, I might not be happy, but I might be wondering, oh my gosh, do they have irritable bowel and they need to find a bathroom right now?
Yeah, totally.
Or do they have a doctor's appointment they're running late for? I mean, I'm a little more patient. Or, if I go to the grocery store and somebody has that, what we call the, resting bitch face, I can't help but look at them and think, I have no idea how they're feeling on the inside. I have no idea. This person might be in incredible pain right now. And they've got people being rude to them all day long. You never know. And so I'm very grateful that it's made me have a different outlook and treat people in a way that I do. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that so much. Well, I have one more question for you. So thinking back to those really difficult years, thinking back to this first doctor, when he's giving you the wrong info and you know it in your gut, and you're being led in the wrong direction and things feel hopeless and it seems like it's never going to get better. It did get better, you made it. But thinking back to that person that you were in that moment, if you could go back in time and give that version of you a message from the future, what would it be?
Wow. I think my message would be, first of all, fire that doctor. Let's start with that one. But I would also say it's not going to be like this forever. You will find people that understand you, will support you, will help you. You will find the right treatment. And it might feel really incredibly lonely right now, but it won't last forever. You still have so much to offer. And I probably tell this to people all the time, and I hope people don't get tired of it, but you only have one life. Live that life. I know it's hard to not get stuck mourning the life that you once had and the life that you want to have, but put a timer on it. You need to put a timer on that morning. And something else might happen in your life and you're mourning your old life again, and that's okay. Just keep putting that timer on it because you have a joy-filled life ahead of you.
Amazing. Wow, what a great message. Jen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story. I'm so excited that we've been connected, and I'm so excited to, we've been talking off mic about how we can support each other's podcasts, and we're going to do some cross collaboration, which is very exciting. And this is just the beginning of that. So I'm so thrilled to get to know you and to hear your story. Please tell us again where people can go to find My Spoonie Sisters or anything else you'd like to plug.
Yeah, so if you want to find me or get involved in the things that we do, you can find us on Instagram or on our website. It's at My Spoonie Sisters. Or you can also find me on Instagram at gracefully_Jen.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Major Pain. I'm Jesse Mercury, your host and the producer of this podcast. Artwork by Egg Salad Salad. Our theme music is the song Time Machine from my synth-pop album Sci-Fi, now streaming everywhere. Support this show on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, all at Major Pain Podcast. If you have questions or comments you'd like to share with myself, our guests, or our listeners, send an email to majorpainpodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about this show, support its creation, or comment on any episode at majorpainpodcast.com. Major Pain is supported by our listeners on Patreon. Thank you to our $2 per month supporters, our $7 per month patrons Naomi Adele Smith, Sonny Roberts, Kelsey Matson, Alexandria Henderson, Justin Minnick, Laura Stevens, Heather Muncie, and Robert, and our $25 per month producers Steve Kavanaugh, Chris Fowler, Trish O'Brien, and Hipster Leia. Learn how you can support this podcast while receiving special recognition on the show, gifts, and monthly bonus episodes at patreon.com/majorpainpodcasts.